What's going on, Badger Nation? Welcome to the PPC Den podcast, your home for all things Amazon advertising tips, tricks, strategies, all designed to make your Amazon advertising life a little bit easier, a little bit more profitable. Today, I am privileged and super excited to have my dear friend Brent from AMZ Pathfinder, and I'm super stoked about it. Brent, I do have to ask for anyone listening on YouTube. You are not in your normal location. In fact, you appear to be in a room that is not even yours.
That's true. Not mine anymore.
Not yours anymore.
I'm in the burbs. I'm at my parents' home. Yeah, so I'm in the burbs. And we got the multicolored fan blades. You can maybe see those up there.
Oh, yeah.
This is my childhood bedroom. We have a shelf full of old books and pictures of sports teams, all the classic stuff. I have moved all the embarrassing photos, the ones of me when I was like 3 or whatever. So keep those out of the frame here.
Yes, we had to do some. We had to move some things off frame over here.
Yeah, last minute renovations, let's call it.
Yeah. Normally you are in France. Now you are in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Yep. Until early next month, and going to be in New York very soon. I guess by the time this comes out, that will have already happened. But going to go to the Unboxed event. Very excited about that.
Yes, you're going to Unboxed. What do you hope to achieve there? Talk to future Brent about what you hope you achieved.
It's like a pep talk for myself in the future. I think my biggest goals are meet with people from Amazon, some of whom are fairly senior, fairly in control of ad products that you and I and everyone listening to this podcast uses probably day in, day out.
Yeah.
And get to ask them questions face to face in a real life setting. That to me is probably going to be the biggest value. And so I want to maximize the questions and time I get with those people on the first day, which is mostly focused for agency stuff. And then, meeting clients, talking to people at Amazon in a less formal setting, not as much of a meeting. And then meeting people from our industry. I'm organizing a little meetup as part of this private Facebook group I'm in, that you're in, that we can, meet in person. And maybe, we'll have more news about other kind of groups and stuff in the future. So, I like to be the organizer of those kind of things, or be involved in those kind of things. So I look forward to that as well.
Yeah, you really inspire me how you communicate with your Amazon reps and talk to them about things you'd love to see to make your life easier, to better manage campaigns. And I think it's the call line of this podcast is to make your Amazon advertising life a little bit easier, a little bit more profitable. And I often do it from working with what we have available. But I think it's another frontier to be hey, we have this available, but I'm going to contact Amazon and be why don't you do this differently? Can you accomplish this? Can we get downloads?
Yeah, be vocal and complain about it. I mean, if there's anything I've learned from having an agency rep for a while now, and we're not a massive company. We're a mid-size agency, small agency, but it doesn't mean that our value is not, our opinions are not valued in some way. So we are very vocal about things we want, things we need, and we kind of make, I wouldn't say demands, but frequent emphatic requests of Amazon for things we want to see and features we want. And some of those eventually are honored. Sometimes, you throw something into, it feels like a black pit. It just never goes anywhere, but black hole. But sometimes those things are honored, and I feel like they do listen.
It's true. Yeah. Anytime I've ever had feedback, I was about to say complain. Yeah. Anytime I've complained, they're always receive it really well. They're that's good for us to know. And I think that's a really good value to have. A year ago, I was why don't we have ad groups for sponsored brands? It's very incongruent the way that everything else has ad groups. Sponsored brands doesn't have ad groups. It could be a little cumbersome to work within that limitation, because you have to think a little extra for that. And now there's going to be ad groups for sponsored brands, which is cool.
Wonderful.
So yes, we've got a cool topic today. I love this topic. It's a topic that a lot of times when we think about reducing PPC spend, this perspective is not talked about. And we're going to explain it a little bit here in a couple different ways so that we can really wrap our head around it, which is basically I think most people do this. I'm spending too much. I want to reduce my ACOS. And Yeah. So when people are reducing they want to reduce their budgets, like what would you say the most common activity people are doing?
Yeah, the first one that comes to my mind, which always is scary for us at the agency side, is they'll just go in and slash budgets, right? So they're like, oh, this one's $50 a day. No, it's 25 now. Just arbitrarily, let's just get in there with a machete and just chop these things up. That's about it.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen people pause full campaigns because some keywords in it had a high ACOS.
Right.
They're like, I'm trying to cut budget. I got a couple keywords in here with a high ACOS, like pause the entire campaign and
Right.
not pay attention to like the search terms in there or like some of the winning keywords in there. Yeah. So what I think that's the most common way to reduce budget. This is a more nuanced way to reduce budget in your campaigns, which is actually on keywords you rank really high for. And it's kind of like, how do you know when your PPC has hit the point of diminishing returns? Meaning like, okay, you can improve your BSR, you can improve your share of voice, you can improve your standing in the market if you increase your PPC budget 25%. If you increase your budget at 50%, if you increase your PPC budget 100%, at what point do you get no more value? Like at what point are you just increasing spend, increasing ACOS without actually grabbing more of the market? And that's one way to think about this. Like, have I hit a point with my PPC spend where, you know, it's pretty common practice to like push a PPC keyword. Like I'm going to push this to improve organic ranking. At what point has your pushing led to no more impact on your
Right.
organic performance?
The
Is
classic
one way that we're
diminishing
thinking about this.
returns.
But the point
And,
of
and
diminishing returns.
yeah, the other thing the other analogy I'll use or comparison, I like to speak in like analogies and metaphors, but is the pole vaulting one I think we discussed is like basically a professional pole vaulter. They're going to put, their athleticism is like incredible, but they're going to put all their energy and focus into like getting over that bar, literally clearing the bar. And anything that's like above that or extra is technically like wasted effort. So
Yeah.
they need to clear like 11 and a half feet. I don't know what pole vaulters go up to. I imagine that's how high they go in many
Pole
cases.
vaulters, please write in.
Probably much higher, actually, now that I think about
Yeah.
it. But yeah, but they're clearing the bar, they're getting over that, and then any more effort is wasted effort. It's kind of like using a hammer to kill an ant. It's like you don't really need to do that. There's a certain amount of solution that is commensurate with the problem, right? And so, how do we apply ad spend tactically and think about that in a more of a nuanced way, so it's not just like let's $100 a day, let's just go crazy like for a month. Maybe that's not necessary.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Like, you don't need to jump 50 feet in the air to clear a bar that's 15 feet. Yeah, that makes total sense. I think another question that sort of talks about another angle of this is like, can I reduce spending on a keyword without losing any sales? Like, that's another way to put this where it's like, hey, I'm spending 2 grand a month on this one keyword. I rank in position one for paid and sponsored. Could I actually can I pay 20% less and lose no sales? Like, can I maintain that organic rank one? And can I maintain like number one conversion share for this keyword by actually reducing my ad spend by 20%? So I think I want to preface this by saying, like, in my experience, because I'll share an experience that I did with a client over the last few months. In my experience, we were only considering this for keywords that they were like in spot one and spot two, like organic rank one, sponsored rank one. Because if you're kind of in like organic rank 10 or 20 and your sponsored rank is really up there too, like 10 or 20, you can probably gain. Like, you're going to gain if you get more aggressive with your PPC campaigns, is generally the thing to expect. So we're talking about like organic rank one, sponsored rank one. Could you actually spend a little less on your PPC and still maintain that ranking and still maintain that conversion share? So like, clients have had to ask you this question before. Like, what has been your experience with this kind of concept of like, could we actually scale down ads and have absolutely no impact? Like, could we save like 5-6% of our ad spend and
Yeah.
do exactly the same in the market?
Yeah, I think the way that clients have usually approached us or talked to me or comms people, or Sam's about this is basically they're thinking of it in somewhat of a serial fashion, in the sense of like not cereal you eat for breakfast, but like serial versus parallel, where they're thinking, okay, we're spending a lot of money on this term. Maybe we've launched it 6 months ago and now it's got its footing, and like this product has inertia, and we're actually doing well organically for this. As you defined it, I think it's important to think like well is like top 5 organically, not
Yeah.
like we're on bottom of page 1 or like we're on page 3, yay. It's more like no, we've established like a real foothold here, and it's shown to be consistent, which is important because I think measuring organic rank, looking at it one afternoon on the October and saying, oh, okay, we're position 1, let's make a bunch of decisions based on this, is very different than looking at it over the course of a month or week to week, and then looking at the rolling median or mean or whatever and seeing like where it is. But the way that I think we're most often approached or start this discussion is like, can we move ad spend from one keyword to another, because they're seeing it as a sort of opportunity cost. It's like, well, we've kind of solved this problem over here, so we're going to migrate this ad spend to a different problem and try to solve that problem. The problem being, how do we get the organic rank into a position that's like better and more consistent?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's usually how it is. I think that's the approach they take.
Right. So like, in January, you've launched a single keyword campaign, big top of search boost for sponsored products, and you're trying to rank high for that keyword and product. And then what happens after you do? So now you're ranking high for that product. What happens if you want to move that ad spend somewhere else now? Like, how do you do that? And how do you monitor that in a way that you don't slip in that position? So, yeah, this whole concept I think is really cool. What about in terms of like cannibalization? Like that's a word that gets tossed around a lot because let's say you're ranking in organic position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're ranking really high organically, and then all of a sudden you start like imagine that scenario. No ads. You rank position 1, 2, 3, or 5. Then you start ads. What happens is now you're paying for some of these sales. Like, was it worth it?
Right.
Like, is it worth it for you to bid on this
Right.
keyword? Like, you were already in position 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now you're paying $1,000 a month to have an ad appear next to your organic rankings. Did that do anything? Like, how do you measure that impact?
Yeah, that might be still. I'm not sure if I agree that this is something that we can still solve. I think it is one of these like riddles of the Sphinx, which is like a question that we get all the time from clients, and it's something that's very visual, and so it resonates with people. Like they'll sit on their computer and during the day they'll like run a search and they'll be like, "Look, there's our ad, there's our organic,"
Yeah.
and okay, that's like something that they can see and is tangible, and
Yeah.
they'll like it makes a strong impression.
Yeah.
And then the cannibalization question comes up: why are we spending $1,000 a month on this if we can see that we have organic sales in this because it's high up? But I think some of the methods that we've identified here, I guess we'll speak on next, is like we have some metrics now that this is becoming more solvable. I'm not sure if it's solved, but it's becoming more solve-able.
Yeah, yeah. So you could answer that question, both in two ways. Like, and I'll be honest, it often comes up in like market leaders or like brand leaders.
Yeah.
High BSR, strong organic rankings, strong sales, and they're just spending a lot on their ads, and they're wondering, could I reduce my ad spend by 5, 10, 15% without having any negative consequence? They're like, people love my product. I have the number one conversion share. Do I need to also have an ad in that super high rank? So they want to push these questions to see if they've crossed over that point of diminishing returns. So here's my experience with this. A couple months ago, a PPC coaching client I was working with was like, yeah, we're spending like 50 grand a month and we'd like to spend less, like maybe 45 or 40 grand a month. Can we do that without impacting any sales? And of course, like, the best practice is like the more you spend on paid, the more organic sales you will have. And their point was like, well, actually, like I'm spending a lot. I'm in organic rank 1. My ad is in sponsored rank 1. What would happen if I was in sponsored rank 2? Would I still have number 1 organic rank? Because if they can reduce their spend on a keyword that they're spending, $2,000 a month, if they can turn that into 1,500, and they could turn another keyword from $2,000 to $1,500 a month in ad spend without having any impact. So this is what we did a couple of months ago, and this was before Search Query Performance Dashboard came out. So basically, what we did was like fired up Helium 10, looked at the keywords, organic rank, tracked it week by week, and basically I'll be honest, I pushed back from doing this. I was like, don't do it. Like, stay in sponsored rank 1. But basically the feedback loop that they set up was like, if I'm in organic rank 1 and sponsored rank 1, then reduce the ACoS on that keyword by 5 points. So if the current ACoS for that keyword was 30%, begin to target a 25% ACoS for that keyword, and then we'll check again. If you fall to organic rank 2 and sponsor rank 2, leave that exactly where it is. So like ideally, you've got a lower ACoS for that keyword and you're still ranking really strong. But then if you're in organic rank 3 and sponsored rank 3, then increase your target ACoS 5 points. So like push it back from 25 to 30. And they wanted to see if they could do this feedback loop, like back and forth. Like if you're in organic rank 1 and sponsored rank 1, let's lower the ACoS ever so slightly. And then if we slip to positions 3, then increase the ACoS ever so slightly. So this is a sort of like, it's like an interesting experiment to play around with. And I think it's evolved. Like, I think if I were to do this today, I would look at brand analytics because they have conversion share per keywords. So I would like type that keyword in, because organic rank, you could theoretically be in organic rank 2 and still have the most sales. And you can verify that with,
right,
the brand analytics. You can go to brand analytics if you're in, conversion share 1, 2, or 3. You could see that, I'm looking at a product right now because it's Halloween. I'm looking at Halloween costumes for women as the most searched search term on Amazon this week, October 20th, which is a cool topical thing. And I will tell you that the first position, according to brand analytics, has 6.8% of conversion share. The second one has 1.9% of conversion share. And then the third one has 3.5% conversion share. So they actually, the third position.
So they don't line up as you might expect just intuitively. And
they don't.
It sounds like there's a really long tail on that. Like if the top one's like 6%, like that means that there's like a dozen that each have like 1.5%. And then, like you said, the third and the second are reversed of what you might imagine.
Yeah. So like on the brand analytics search term report, they're listing 1, 2, and 3 by click share. So if you're in one of these 3 spots, you can actually see, oh, hey, I have the biggest conversion share. If I were to drop into position 2 or 3, would I still have the highest conversion share? And then, a lot of people look at that as an opportunity to save some ad spend. So I'll be honest, like they did it, and like we weren't using brand analytics data, but like brand analytics data would confirm that. Like you could look at the search query performance dashboard and you can confirm that your share of orders has not gone down.
Right.
Like you can confirm that your conversion share has not gone down. So I'll be honest, even as I sit here and describe it, like I don't love this idea. Like I don't necessarily like recommend doing this because like you don't want things to go sideways. Like if you decrease your ACoS by 5 points and you slip into organic position 3, and then you go back and you increase your ACoS 5 points, are you going to be stuck in position 3? Like, did you like make it a lot harder for yourself? Did you slip on the mountain and now you're 50 feet down? So like this idea, like this is like a spooky idea. It's like spooky season over here.
Perfect for Halloween season. Yeah.
So honestly, it's a scary idea, and I think people should tread lightly. But I mean, we're talking about it because I've been asked about this like many, many times. I've experimented with it a little bit.
Yeah, this is an interesting theoretical question, and there is tactical implementation to be had from it. I want to point out a couple things in what you just were talking about. But when you say like a lower the ACoS target, what you're saying is we're lowering bids, right? Because we're assuming that the conversion rate is going to remain roughly the same, if it's cruising along. But what we're doing is making small bid changes such that we're lowering our ACoS target, and then subsequently that has an impact on the bids. And maybe that's done through software, maybe that's done manually with calculations you make,
right.
Involving simple math. But that's what we mean when we talk about like lowering the ACoS target. That's usually going to influence the bid level, assuming other things like stay the same. And another thing on what you just touched on, yeah, I mean, I guess that like the real takeaway here is that the newest tools we have, the search query performance, and to some extent the brand analytics with the top three, those are really the things we can use to actually make a decision on this now. I think that's the move. I know we have talked about extensively in the past couple weeks and just recently, like which one of these tools can help augment this, and I think that's really the 80-20 of it, is a search query performance, because you do get that actual percentage, right? So not to spoil the end of the episode, but I feel like that's the answer, at least for now.
Yeah, so I mean, if a client were to contact you today and said exactly that thing, hey, I'm dominating organically, I'm dominating on my ads, can I bid a little less on this stuff and like get a better ACoS, incrementally decrease my bids, maybe they decrease their bid from $1 to 95 cents and see what happens, see if anything happens, 95 to 90, see if anything happens. Right. Like barely inch down their paid bids to see if it has any impact on like their conversion share or their organic ranking or their search query performance data on percentage of purchases they have. Like, how would you respond these days?
I would be open to trying it, but I would really want to benchmark these things first. So if we can see them inside of, and I think it's useful, this conversation, as far as it is like for individual keywords, right? Because that's really what the crux of this is. It's like we could use a couple things. One would be like share of voice, which can measure basically through software, like, okay, what is the percentage of products that are showing up on page one for this keyword for this client, and then how many of those are showing up organically in what position, how many of those are showing up in paid in what position, and that might be something to benchmark along with the search query performance that we just touched on and the percentage of sales there. So you have to like gather some data first. It's like a data gathering exercise first to benchmark it. But then I'd be open to trying it. I mean, we are actively trying this with some clients. I can't say that we have the final answer because we just haven't come to that point yet, but I guess the whole idea of the show is to show our work and to share some of the thoughts we're having about this, even if we're not fully formed yet with it. But I would be open to it. I think that this is something that's worth doing. Is it a bit scary? Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. It is a bit scary, and I think when we do it with clients, we might tell them, yeah, hold on to your butts. This might be a little bit bumpy. So.
Yeah, and so I think we're also on the same page that like this is usually for like top products, top keywords, sort of market leaders, where like they're seeing if they could, potentially gain a profitability edge by seeing if they could reduce their PPC spend. Right. And
by necessarily that means that the spend has to be high in the first place. I mean, so you and I like, oh, I'm spending $120 a month on this one keyword. You're not like crying about that. It's like the keyword you spend $3,000 a month on might be the place to do this.
Right. And because you stack up, $500 savings on 10 keywords where you're spending $3,000 a month, like you've stacked up a lot of savings. Yeah. So this is an interesting perspective, and maybe even we do a check-in on this topic.
Follow-up.
Yeah. That might be an interesting idea to do a follow-up on this, because it happens a lot. And like, we're doing it here and there, like you guys are doing it here and there. I would love to post an update to this. And I'd be also curious to like get conversations from people going. So like message me and Brent on LinkedIn, start a group chat on LinkedIn, like let us know your testing of this. We'll have you on and talk about it. So I think this is like a really cool, interesting topic that gets revisited. There's different ways to do it. I think my favorite way is with the search query performance dashboard, because you could see your percent share of the orders. I think if you're one of these top three in brand analytics search terms, where like you have one of the top three click shares, you could see how your conversion share changes week by week. I love that concept, because you might look at that and say, hey, I reduced my click share, but actually my conversion share, I'm still the leader. So I just saved, some cash every month by bidding a little bit lower. I like that concept.
Yeah, but the one thing that is true is that technically the way the auction works for ads, like if you are position 2 or position 3, you should be paying less than position 1. So like that's one thing that's more concrete, I guess. A lot of these other things are a little bit more fuzzy. Like, well, if you are position 3, you might have a bigger click share. But with ads, like, well, technically no. If you're position 3, it should be cheaper than the position you were paying for before. So that's like more concrete and something you can kind of hang your hat on. Now, there's probably some exceptions to that based on Amazon's, let's call it, quality score, if such a thing exists. It's a whole nother podcast maybe.
Oh yeah.
to talk about.
Yeah. So my final thoughts on this topic. I've done this before to and it saved some cash, right? Like the people that I've referred to, that sort of feedback loop, like if I'm in organic rank 1 and sponsored rank 1, I don't need to be in sponsored rank 1. I'm going to try to aim for sponsored rank 2 or 3. And funny enough, Google Ads actually has like an option. Like they tell you when you're looking at a keyword, they'll tell you your sponsored rank in the actual interface. They'll tell you your average position, which is helpful because
very helpful.
Yeah, you fluctuate on a search result page. So they'll tell you your average position. So what you can actually do is actually like say like, I'm just going to bid for target position 2, where it's like, I'm not going to spend, theoretically, I'm not going to spend the most. I'm going to spend the second most, and that's what I'm comfortable with. That's like a big win for me. So like you can actually like target paid position, and it'll tell you that in the interface, which I think would be so very needed because you can't get it in the interface. You have to like use a third-party tool.
Yeah, I don't think we have that in Amazon at all through any official means, do we?
No.
another request for any Amazon reps listening out there.
Yeah,
another request.
Yes.
Yeah, please give us the position along with conversion rate in the interface. Although I know that's in the search terms area or whatever, but
yeah. So I would love sponsored position in the keyword report, so I can just look at that and be like, oh, okay, like let's see what would happen on the search query performance dashboard, or let's see what would happen in brand analytics if we were to actually like average position 2 for some time for sponsored rank, and then see how that influences your organic positions and your overall share of conversions. So I really love this topic. So I guess the thing there is like, yeah, because I do have a little case study that I did do this and it did result in some savings. So
maybe with some time we can trot one out too that'll have some more useful example, and we'll have to integrate this search query performance because I don't think we're using that. I think we're mostly using share of voice, but search query seems like a better answer to the question overall.
Yeah.
So bit of an open-ended one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we're here to do, like share new ideas and like talk about how we can implement them and how we can sort of like push the envelope on like what's possible in your PPC campaigns, which is what we do here. And it's what you do too over at AMZ Pathfinder. Brent?
We certainly try.
Yes. Brent, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about this concept. I don't think I've ever heard this talked about anywhere. I don't think I've really seen this. Like, has your PPC hit the point of diminishing returns? Could you potentially reduce spend without any issue? And we've given you some ideas here on how you could play around with that ever so slightly to sort of measure the impact of maybe I'll go be in sponsored rank 2 or 3 and see if that actually changes my conversion share or my search query performance purchase share.
Right. What matters is that we can actually measure some of these things now, unlike before. So that's what makes all the difference, I guess.
Very well said. Have a good one. Brent from AMZ Pathfinder, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks,
and
Mike.
Everyone else, I'll see you next week here on the PPC Den podcast.